Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Nis, and today I'll be going over a personal favorite of mine when it comes to gaming, Lone Survivor. That's right, I'm going over a game you may or may not remember or even heard of in the first place. I'm going to go over and interpret the game Lone Survivor, which to this day is my absolute favorite indie and game in general. Hell, when I look back on this video, it might still be my favorite game in general. With that out of the way, let's go over the basics of Lone Survivor. Lone Survivor is an indie survival horror game made by Jasper Byrne, and it was released April 23rd of the year 2013. Yeah, it's another survival horror game. Like another survival crafting game or another roguelike, it's nothing you haven't seen before. You've seen the genre plenty of times. But even when it's following the norm, it's kinda not. They take a lot of fascinating approaches to it for this game. Although there are many out there, this one is survival horror in a more unique approach to the genre, or at least one that has not been done a lot in the past decade. Clearly taking inspiration from Silent Hill 2 and games like it, Lone Survivor makes itself interesting in the sense that you can keep your hunger and health satisfied, but you still have to manage your sanity. Now this isn't unique on its own, but there are no bars or meters. You have to be aware of your environment and test yourself. Your screen will flash red when you're in serious pain, and your screen will have some problems with movement and lights when you're tired. But sanity is not that easy. There are a few ways to gauge your sanity before beating the game, although there are very, very few, and one of them is looking at the mirror and paying attention to what you say. If you say something positive about yourself, or maybe a meh comment, you're on the right track to a green ending. I'll get to that later. Saying negative things, however, will mean that you're leaning towards the blue and red ending. But hey, one more hint. If you play the game multiple times, you may notice, depending on your sanity, some visions change. There are obvious ways to raise your sanity: eating right, avoiding fights with the monsters, and so on. There are still factors that you may not take in, such as your sleep. Your sleep takes a large factoring of your sanity. Do you sleep when you need it? Or do you sleep too early? Or maybe too late? Do you sleep without taking a pill? Do you sleep without eating anything? What do you say to the people that you see in your dreams while you're sleeping? These all factor in, maybe more than you know. The story of the game, or at least it seems to be at first, is that an outbreak has infected the majority of the population, mutating them into monsters that barely resemble humans anymore, causing several deaths and butchering of people. There was nothing that could be done. You play a man whose name is not important anymore. He used to know how long he was before the outbreak, and how long he was holed up in his apartment, but he has no idea anymore. He's lost track. He is only referred to now as you. You have ran out of multiple supplies to remain holed up in your apartment, and you have to go outside and start searching to try to survive. You're scared of the monsters, but your fear is overpowered by your hunger for food and a chance to survive through this. You've been in there for an unknown passage of time, but it's clear it's long enough to take a toll on your sanity, as he sees her, an important girl he knew in his past. Also, seeing multiple reoccurring illusions of strange men who actually represent different parts of himself. You struggle to survive, maybe even get out of this godforsaken town, but at the very, very least, you do not want to die alone. Now, onto the horror aspect. I think it does it alright, keeping the atmosphere of confusion and fear a large amount throughout the game. You better not run out of light, or lose it if you're in the wrong place to. Running out of light and or ammo will cause you to panic and pass out, creating a dream sequence where you will see one of your illusions, and they'll give you more batteries, or more ammo depending on who you see. It also brings in disturbing thoughts. This crystal's filled with blood on the ground. No, it's your imagination. It's probably the lighting. The walls behind you are made out of flesh. No, that can't be. Maybe you should go back to your room and get some sleep. That must be must have been a lack of sleep or something. But you're still never going in that hole again. The game itself expects you to make do with what you have and what it gives you. If you're not physically or mentally talented, just an average Joe in general. You don't go in with a big gun. In fact, you start out with no gun at all. Your ammo is usually lacking and you have to use it sparingly. And your batteries are a conflict of will you have enough light if you listen to music and use up a battery for the sake of boosting your sanity. So I think it does well in pushing you to play the game in certain ways, and although going against those ways makes the game more difficult, it leads to what others may call a good ending. With the horror aspect out of the way, I'd like to continue with my interpretation of Lone Survivor's ending system. Warning, this will have spoilers. I repeat, this will have spoilers. If you thought the early stuff was spoilers, that was nothing compared to this. And if you intend to play Lone Survivor and have not yet, it's been a pleasure having you, but you should not be watching the rest of this video yet. In the review of Jasper Byrne on Rock Paper Shotgun, he admitted that the game is post 9/11, which a bombing disaster could be included to the multiple references throughout the game, such as a newsletter reporting a bombing disaster, and the protagonist even suspecting that there was a type of explosion outside due to the scenery. No, nothing compared to the chaos of the monsters could have caused something like that. My belief happened is that the lone survivor and the one he remembers as her were in a horrible accident. He was the only one who survived. And with this happening, he suffered the tragedy of losing her and possibly have some survivor guilt, which is why the game has this rememberable, corny, generic name that is Lone Survivor. So he had to live it on his lonely life with nobody else but his thoughts and Sleepy Cat. As you may notice, Sleepy Cat plays a more significant role than a lot of other items in the game. Within New Game Plus, offering Sleepy Cat to people will give you some interesting results and responses. What surprised me is how Sleepy Cat is universally treated like a gem, a prized possession so valuable that it could not be traded off as a gift. If this outbreak is just his conflicts in his head and his feelings, like I believe it is, then this reveals how much he truly values Sleepy Cat. Perhaps it was a gift from her, or one of the few things that he had remembered her with. In the white ending, you wake up in a hospital bed with her sitting across from you. In the green, she's in the hospital bed, and she seems like she's not going to make it. My theory is that she's most likely dead in the green and white endings. Are you finally moving on and attempting not to let this all overwhelm you? Lone Survivor is not about surviving and remaining the lone survivor, but rather coping with being the lone survivor. Why do I think this? You may be wondering, but it's actually simple. It's the order of the endings. White ending comes after green ending, and how I know this is that white ending is a New Game Plus ending. Assuming that you beat the game with green ending, something comes to light. You find her in the hospital bed in the green ending, but in the white ending, only accessible in New Game Plus, you're in the hospital bed, and you go as far as being confused and saying, this should be the other way around. If you remember those strange men I mentioned earlier in this video, because later in the game, they seem to progressively serve a more important role. A lot of them represent different parts of you. 3 of them do. The man who wears a box represents the calmer and more peaceful side, offering you things to survive and being able to keep living. In your dreams, he offers you food and batteries when you're low on either, but never anything harmful. He wears a box to conceal himself. This is revealed in a conversation between you and the man who wears a box, and you going along with these lines. Do you know why I wear a box over my head? Is it because you're hiding? It's not as stupid as an answer as it sounds. The man who wears a box dresses strangely, as you see. The art in the pixels make it a little difficult to tell, but the man who wears a box of clothing does resemble a suit that looks very similar to Lone Survivor's when he's older and in the green and white ending, minus the tie. But the man who wears the box is not the only well-dressed gentleman among the trio. We also have the mysterious, tall, pale man, the man you meet 3 times throughout the game. Or you're supposed to, at least. Why I believe the green and white endings are the true endings is because they're the only endings where you meet the white-faced man a 3rd time. The white-faced man is you. He looks incredibly similar to you, except taller, better dressed, and looks like he is slowly fading away physically. He's pale and thin from being bedridden from such a long time, and you can figure out why. And he is actually your conscious self. And the final fellow is the one who usually makes the most appearances, and is the most dramatic. He's quite a card. Of course, I'm talking about the one who taunts you in the shadows, the bitter old man in blue. Notice carefully something about the lone survivor. He's definitely young. He's treated like he's someone younger. He's shorter than the monsters, and a lot of characters you run into. He is actually pretty unusual compared to the shapes of several other characters. All except for the blue old man. They're the same height, similar hairstyle, and if you look very carefully in the game, they have the same quirks. They both twitch, they both shrug, they both look left and right in paranoia. They have incredibly similar behavior. Although he and Lone Survivor have much in common, they do not have all the similarities. Lone Survivor doesn't slouch as much, and keeps his hands to his side in general, rather than casually keeping them in his pockets like it seems the old man is. This is a visual message. The old man and the Lone Survivor are much the same, but are not at the same time. Jasper Byrne tries really hard to get this message across. In this example, the blue and the red ending can both apply for a lot of situations, but for the sake of the point, I'm going to focus on the red ending, because it has stronger details. Although the blue ending has a few things of its own, in the end, you are taunted by the old man. You eventually shoot him out of frustration. He stops, and begins laughing some more, so hard it surprises you. At least it seems like it did, but the moment you drop the gun, you have an identical bullet wound in your chest. I do believe that the old man is you, being taunted by yourself, told not to move on, not to change, to just accept your fate here. And when you shoot him, the lights flash more rapidly, showing you and him are alike with graying hair and wrinkles, until it all stops. Are you dead? So this is what it's like. You're sitting on the hill that you remember so well, sitting next to her, looking at the city in the distance. You two talk. You're now in a blue shirt, one very similar to the old man's. She asks you if you two are still together. You grasp her hand and answer yes. What else would you do? You're finally out of the madness, out of the chaos. You would rather not be anywhere else. The lone survivor finally finds his own peace. But is this how it should all end? Is this really what you wanted? I think not. You run into her several times throughout the game. Her only message is always the same. Forget me. Just move on. Take better care of yourself. Even the old man knows better than to think that'll end here. In the blue ending, when you shoot him, you don't get the bullet hole in your chest, but he taunts you one last time. You're gonna have to do better than that. In fact, in the beginning of the game, when you turn your flashlight on for the first dream sequence, you're behind the very same stage in the endings of blue and red. You see the very same man, the very same pose, the very same sounds when he laughs, and the very same bullet wound. New Game Plus or not, hinting that this is not the first time that this has happened. Also, in the white ending, you see her, but she's not the same. She's pale. She looks dead, just crawling on the floor. doesn't resemble the fleshy monsters you've been fighting before. No, no, no. There's something else. She's something else. She's different. A ghost. A figure that haunts you. To truly, truly move on, you must reach the white ending. So I'd like to conclude with my full theory. You and she were lovers before, as you would say, it all began. You used to sit next to her on the hill with the large tree outside of town. You both used to sit there, hold hands, talk, and even play hide and seek. You would count to like 1,000,000 and try to find her. She was a good hider. One day you were counting, but something different happened. An explosion of some kind. You managed to make it out alive, but you couldn't find her. Maybe she was still hiding. Maybe. But she wasn't. And you couldn't recover from it. You were devastated. You started taking poorer and poorer care of yourself, despite knowing that that's not what you would have wanted at all. You begin seeing things and becoming delusional, and eventually, you don't know what's real anymore. The world out there didn't end, but yours did. Anyway, that concludes my video on Lone Survivor. I've been longing to make this video for a while now, and I hope you all enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed making it. For references, check the description, and you can perhaps get a better grasp on the story or even more theories of your own.